Well, I'm also going to be doing something a little different today, too, as I'm sure some of you can read in the title. Also, this is sponsored by Winko's a cran raspberry sparkling water. Not really, though, but I love the taste. Anywho, I'm going to do a book review, thanks to a certain special someone who recommended it to me. I read Stephen King's Under the Dome. Now, I have listened to a couple of Stephen King books on audiobook in the past, Misery, It. So, I'm familiar with it, but this is the first time I've actually sat down and read a Stephen King novel and made it all the way through. I tried one with Christine, but it just didn't do well for me. But this thing was a massive undertaking, this is the first over 1,000-page book that I have ever read in my entire life. And I have some thoughts, but let's get it out of the way first. Did I like this book? Yes, I did. I actually enjoyed it quite a lot, surprisingly enough. I can understand why this is considered among the better of like what Stephen King has read. And, the premise is so interesting, and the way that the story unfolds is really, really just as interesting. I definitely was invested from start to finish. So do I recommend this book? Yes, I do. What would I rate it out of 10? I'd give this around maybe an 8, 8.5 out of 10, which leads me to some of the problems I had with this book. You see, if you don't know Stephen King, then you're not gonna like. How am I supposed to phrase this? Stephen King's a lot like M. Night Shyamalan. You come to expect certain things from him as a creative. And this book is no different. You have a lot of one-dimensional characters who have a couple of defining traits, but they get the job done as they have a point to serve in the story. And on top of that, you have a lot of Jesus talk. And I get it. I do. I really do. But a lot of the way that these characters are written sometimes it feels stilted and weird. Oh, they're having mashed potatoes and gravy with Jesus at the dinner table up in heaven. And I'm just like, there's a better way you could have written that. Don't get me wrong. I have family that are from the Midwest and from the South. So, I understand how sometimes they bring the rhetoric of Jesus into it. But a lot of the dialogue in this book is so wonky. It's so wonky. And on top of that, the pacing. I never thought that there would be an issue with pacing when it comes to books, but holy cow, there are a lot of pacing issues with this book. And there are I think close to almost 100 characters that are at least touched upon, or at the very least well over 30. Sometimes a lot of their stories don't mesh well. You have characters that feel like something like the Manchurian Candidate. Oh, we have to figure out the truth behind this deep undercover stuff. And then on top of that, you have like the Goonies, a bunch of kids who are like trying to solve a mystery. Excuse me. And then you have something like Alien, where it's like you have this mystery unfolding, and it's like, oh, okay, so that's what we're doing. And as big as this book is, it does try and tackle a lot. There are times where it's like it takes a while for them to actually get to the mystery of the dome, like well into like 300-400 pages. And by the time it's revealed, it's just like, oh, okay, cool. So like the initial reveal is a bit disappointing in my personal opinion, but then again, the premise of this is that a random dome encapsulates an entire town. Eventually, you're going to have to answer why the dome was there. If you don't give any answer, it's not going to be satisfying. But eventually, I'll get to that in a bit. But I guess the final bit of negatives that I have is that there are a lot of, in my opinion, superfluous characters. At least in the initial, 700 pages, there's a lot of times where you cut away from something that's really interesting, and you're reading this book, and you're like, holy cow, what's gonna happen next? And then you turn the page, and then it cuts to a different section where it's like a person like sitting on a porch, sitting with another character, talking about, something God knows what, or you'll get from a character being horribly abused to someone at the hospital going, hey, have you seen the propane? No. Okay, cool. And eventually that comes into play later. And that's to basically sum up my sort of mixed to negative feelings about this book is that eventually everything comes to work, There's a reason why there's so many superfluous characters. There's a reason why it's paced the way that it is, despite the fact it's so painful at times. There's a reason for it, When it all comes together, it feels like a holy fucking shit moment. And those were words I literally said out loud while reading this book, like a holy fucking shit. So, it's I guess the best way to describe it is that it takes a while for it all to kind of make sense and come together. And that's really the only negatives I have. Everything else would get into spoiler territory, and I do think this is a book that you need to read, without spoilers. So let me get into the stuff that I liked about it. Despite a lot of these characters coming across as one note, everything is woven together so interestingly. And for example, one of the reasons why I liked The Mist was because the idea of a bunch of people in a town being trapped together in one location and having to survive it, I thought that was really interesting. And this book takes that concept of basically a town being trapped in one location and expands upon it, literally, to a enormously great extent. Like I said, when they introduced when they introduced like a bunch of the dome stuff and a lot of the mysteries around the dome, it kind of takes away from a lot of the personal drama. And that's where this book really shines. It's the personal drama and interactions that the townsfolk have with each other. And, as much as I said there's a bunch of superfluous characters, even the superfluous characters have a lot of depth to them. Like every character, even characters that get like one or two sections throughout the entirety of this over 1,000-page book have a lot of depth. You actually feel like this is a chronicle of town's last days. And, it's so interesting. Every character, no matter how boring or dull, feels fleshed out, feels unique. And even then, the main characters, the main players of the story, which are as followed: Barbie, Julia, as well as Rennie, and Rusty, if you want to go there, which, yeah, it is Rusty. Every character has a part to play, and every time you cut to their story, it is intriguing. I could not put this fucking thing down, even if I tried. And it's when the going gets good, it gets so good. And even the stupid Goonies characters that are essentially in this thing, you can't help but feel intrigued by who they are. You can't help but want to know how, like, kids in a certain scenario like this, like, there are a lot of kid characters, some for better, some for worse, that are in this book, and you can't help but at least wonder what's going through their minds, as Stephen King has managed to weave every single one of these characters' lives beautifully, if a little messy, throughout this entire book. So, like, when the going gets good, it's great. When, shit hits the fan, you can't help but go, ooh, 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 ooh. It's gripping. And there are moments of sheer terror, of tenseness, the classic Stephen King that we have all come to expect. And, I will, to sum everything up, despite the clunky writing, odd pacing, and, frustrating, times of characters of just going, what do I need to know this for? By the time I got to the end of the book, I felt fulfilled. I felt like I read a truly phenomenal journey of a town struggle during, quite frankly, an unprecedented event. It is dark, it is fucked up at times, equally funny as well. The tone shifts unevenly from time to time. The genre also flips from time to time. And overall, I would say that, you know, if you know Stephen King, you're able to forgive a lot of his kookier elements. But to those who, like me, have never really picked up a Stephen King book and really just either seen the movies or listened to audiobooks, this is a must. Don't let the, almost school-like textbook or Bible length fool you. This is well worth your time, well worth the read, and I can't help but say this was a damn good time, warts and all. So please, if you haven't already, pick yourself up a copy, read this damn thing, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. And I'll come back to you again with a different review. Maybe I might do another book review. I don't know. This is some kind of fun shit. I mean, I wouldn't really know much about reading to begin with because I'm not really a big reader, but I gotta say, reading some truly fun shit.